So why do we still use report cards? I mean, we're living in an era, in an age, in a time of some incredible innovation. We have unprecedented access to technology, and yet we still use this piece of paper to somehow condense all of our learning journey. And that piece of paper is something that can define us for years to come. I first started asking this question a few years ago when my son came home from school and was feeling pretty upset. You see, it was report card season, and what was normally a pretty proud moment for him, because he had always been a pretty good student, this time was different. You see, my son had received his first C. And as my wife tried to encourage him and say, it's going to be okay, it's still midterm, there's lots of opportunity for you to make it up next term, I was kind of awkwardly standing on the side, and I didn't know what to say, because to be perfectly honest, I wasn't a great student growing up, so a C was a very normal thing for me. But as he sat there looking at this piece of paper, and he just kept saying over and over again, I don't understand, I don't get it, it doesn't make sense. And so naturally, we did what every good set of parents do. We go to the parent-teacher conference, and we sat down with the teacher, and we asked, what are some things that our son can do to improve his grade this year? And the teacher just looked at us blankly with kind of confusion all over her face, and she said, I don't understand. Your son got one of the highest grades in the class. Now, I immediately thought, wow, you are a tough grader. But as my wife pulled out the report card and the teacher started scurrying through her documentation and her laptop, all of a sudden a look of confusion on her face slowly transformed to one of panic. And she said, oh no, I think there's been a mistake. What had happened was she had taken, in the process of taking the grades out of the grade book and putting them into the permanent report card, she had accidentally switched two of the students' grades. Now, on the one hand, I was excited to be able to call my son and let him know the good news that he'd actually received an A in the class. But on the other hand, I was feeling pretty bad for this other set of parents. Because I can imagine their refrigerator had already been plastered with that A. Proud parent bumper stickers affixed to every car. Grandma was making it rain $20 bills. And now, this teacher was going to have to sit down with these parents and explain that their child hadn't actually gotten that A. So it was on that long drive home that you would have thought that I would have felt some frustration or some concern or some anger. The fact that my son had been kind of beating himself up over this for the last 2 weeks. But to be honest, I was actually overwhelmed with empathy. You see, I grew up in an educator's household. My mom was a lifelong teacher, and so I remember firsthand the stress and the anguish that she went through as a teacher. I remember our kitchen table stacked with papers and documents and reports. In fact, it was the only time as kids we were allowed to eat in front of the TV, because we dare not go near that kitchen table. And so I remember coming down at night sometimes, late at night, and I'd see her poring over these documents, trying to condense them down into a handful of notes and comments and grades. And I remember her coming home from parent-teacher nights, sometimes feeling incredibly defeated, sometimes explaining with tears in her eyes how a set of parents was upset and frustrated with her because their child didn't get the perfect marks that they felt they deserved, and that somehow it was her fault that had happened. You see, my mom was an incredible teacher, but she was also a very honest one, and that wasn't always popular. And so, obviously, it was in this process of looking back on this and looking at my son's recent experience that it just got me to thinking, why hasn't this changed at all in the last 35 years? I mean, from the time that I was a child and watching my mom go through this process to now being on the other side of it as a parent, I can't see almost anything having changed from that time. And then it got me to thinking, what else in our world has gone this static for this long? This process bothered me fundamentally, because it felt like it was just this ritual that was repeated over and over again. Stacks of documents of papers are condensed down to a handful of letters on a page, only to be presented to parents with this good news, bad news proposition. And then to get beat up by those parents and have to go through that process of anguish, only to go to bed and wake up the next morning in a brand new term and start the whole process all over again. It just didn't make any sense, and it doesn't make sense anymore. Now, part of why this fundamentally bothered me is because I was going to work every day, and I could see what was possible with technology and what technology could do. See, I was a co-founder and CEO of a kids' virtual world called Club Penguin. And so I would go to work every day, and I was surrounded by these incredibly talented and gifted technologists who were passionate about making this experience as wonderful as it could possibly be for kids. And I was able to see what they were able to do with that technology and see what they could do with data. And of course, because it was a kid's website, all the data was anonymized for privacy and security reasons. But there are still some incredible things that we could do. For instance, we would measure a child's gameplay and then make sure that we were matching them up with other children that were at their same level so they wouldn't have a bad experience. We could take and observe and measure kind of social patterns to be able to understand whether or not they'd feel most comfortable being put into a server that was filled with lots of penguins and crowds, or whether they should prefer to be in an environment that was a little bit more relaxed. And we would do some amazing things. We were experimenting with cross-referencing some of this data to be able to accurately predict the age of a penguin based on whether or not, based on their fine motor skills and their mouse travel and their game-playing abilities, so that we could customize this experience and make it that much more powerful for them and to make it that much more meaningful. We use predictive data every single time we open up our phones and we turn on the map application. I mean, if you think about it, this application knows exactly where we are, where we're trying to go. It has local weather and local traffic patterns, and it can pinpoint down to the minute the most efficient way to get there. And we just are used to it by now. But contrast that with me for a second to what paper maps were like just a few years ago. I remember you unfold this map that will never go back the same way again. You take a highlighter and you try to track the best route. If you want local weather and traffic, you better turn on the radio and hope that they give you something relevant. And don't even get me started on the incredible amount of communication skills required when your spouse is convinced that you're lost. But the reality is, our report cards, our methodology, the way that we're tracking student data, the way that we're communicating with parents is not that dissimilar to these paper maps. And so I asked the question, what else is out there? There has to be something else out there. Certainly this problem has been solved, and I'm just a tech guy who doesn't really know any better. And so I started digging in. In fact, I spent almost a year diving into and researching what tools and technology teachers were actively using in the classroom. And I got to be honest with you, I was pretty shocked and disappointed. Teachers are required today to use some of the worst software that I had ever seen. It's true. It's true. And so it's no wonder that there's sometimes a bit of hesitation when a new tool is released or a new opportunity for something is about to come out. Because let's face it, this software has not served you very well historically. So, what might be possible? What could be possible if we took some of the most incredible state-of-the-art technology that exists today and applied it in a way that truly served students and teachers and parents and administration, that really kind of captured all of that? What might that be like? Let's just dream for a minute, shall we? I like to dream. So, to start, the software would have to be beautiful. It would have to be easy to use, user-friendly, accessible anywhere on any device. It would need to be always on and available. This software would need to augment and enhance the work the teacher's doing in the classroom, not add on to it. And in fact, it should be freeing up time for them to spend more meaningful time with their students, not manually analyzing the data. I can imagine that this software would somehow be able to merge together the incredible qualitative data with photos and videos and audio recordings, and merge that together with quantitative data of tests and quiz scores to build a three-dimensional picture and a tapestry of the learning that's taking place every day. I imagine that in this future, these predictive data algorithms can be working behind the scenes and might spot a student struggling with something long before a teacher might just observe it or be aware of it. And it can highlight that to the teacher so that they can work to respond to it. And I imagine some of these same predictive algorithms might be working behind the scenes to be able to find some of the best resources available for that student and then custom recommend them for them. I imagine a future where a student doesn't have to wait around to wonder what their grade is, but they can track and understand how their learning is progressing in real time every single day. And they can be participating in that by uploading their work and being able to communicate directly with the teacher in the tool itself, not having to bombard them with emails or texts. And I imagine in this world, parents will be advocates and not adversaries. Because instead of having to go through that age-old ritual of waiting for the child to come home from school and asking the question, "What did you do in school today?" only to receive the same answer that we've all received thousands of times, nothing. Instead, by the time that child arrives home from school, they will have already seen a few things that they've been working on that day. And that time can be spent diving deeper into communication with them, and really exploring that journey and really partnering with them along the way, asking them to describe what it was they went through. And I imagine in this future, teachers will receive thank you notes from parents who, for travel reasons or work reasons, might not be able to attend that presentation that happened in class today. But on any mobile device, they could watch a video of their son or daughter giving their presentation in front of the class. And they could do that from anywhere in the world. I imagine a future where this whole concept of report cards completely disappears. And this whole concept of this report card season goes away with it, because you don't need to wait for 2 months to find out what the mark is to go through this whole process when this journey is already happening daily. And so this idea that you're going to be wait for months on end to find out is instead replaced with those same months being spent diving in and working with the student at home. And parent-teacher conferences, these stressful situations for everyone, become instead just a celebration of the ongoing communication that has already been occurring. I imagine a future where these amazing, incredible, beautiful moments that happen every single day in a classroom don't have to be reduced down to a Scantron or letter on a page. And I imagine that these moments can be able to travel with a student year after year, term after term. And not only does this become an incredible asset for future teachers or future professors, but it also becomes an amazing keepsake for them and their families to be able to look back on and see the journey that they've taken and understand how far they've come and how well they've progressed. I imagine a crazy, amazing day when technology can tell us just as much about what our students did in class that day as it can tell us about our aunt's recent vacation. And you know, I've been believing in this reality for a while. I've been dreaming of this potential future for a while. And in fact, I believed in it so passionately that I decided to leave my job at Disney and set out with a handful of some of the best software developers I could find to go see if we could make a difference. And I'm proud to say that together we've been partnering with teachers and administrators and districts from across North America in order to try and make this future a reality. And in the last couple of years, we've begun the process of rolling that out. And in fact, some of our earliest users are emailing us letters and notes of thank yous from parents as this is starting to unfold. And some of them are even beginning the process of letting go of that age-old report card season in favor of this new reality. And so I'm just excited to say that at least when it comes to this, we don't have to keep talking about the future and wonder maybe. We certainly shouldn't sit back and simply do it the same way we've always done it because, well, that's just the way it's always been done. I'm so, so happy to say that the future of education is ready. All that's left to do is embrace it. Thank you.